Well, good Sunday afternoon, evening actually here. You are live inside the Pigpen. I am one of your hosts, Kevin Jackson, and the other half of us, maybe not the better looking half, but at least one half of us we have with us here tonight is Mr. Steve Roper inside the actual Pigpen on the Asheville Highway there. Steve, as we bring you in here.
Oh, I just taking your picture. Oh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pigpen. An exciting weekend of high school and college football it was, wasn't it, Kevin?
It was, and we'll get to a lot of things here. We have a lot to talk about here on tonight's broadcast, including college football playoff selections, a hot topic in today's news. Also, we'll kind of give a little bit of a recap on the South Carolina High School League football state championships as well.
We're here to the state champions.
Yes, sir. And as always, leave us a comment in the live chat. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can watch us on either one of those platforms and leave us a comment. We'll try and feature your remarks live on air. But Steve, what all happened in the Pigpen area for you this week? You got any exciting news to share or any boring news to share?
Well, I have boring news to share if you want to count just laying in the reclining chair in this rainy weather. The rain tapping on that tin roof out here in the Pigpen, laying back in the reclining chair, watching those state championship games was quite the boring day, but it was fun. Getting to watch the 1A games, the first night, and then the 2A game, and the 3A and 4A and 5 and such that. Hey, they were good. And some exciting football, and a couple of teams that you and I saw on the field this year playing for state championships. So at least one of them we saw. Well, there was two. We saw both of St. Joseph and Christ Church, and Christ Church played and won the 1A championship, I do believe, and the 2A was between
Oceanside Collegiate,
Side Collegiate, and Gray Collegiate.
Gray Collegiate. Yep, they were the
Side and Gray, and I watched that, and it came right down to the end too. Two very even teams. It's good,
right, and we'll dive more into those games later. I had a little fun Friday night, actually Thursday night, was spent at your house trying to make your picture come in a clear fashion. And so far, so good, and more stable out at the Pigpen. And
can I elaborate on that for everybody? Because what a great job you did getting the Wi-Fi fixed up out here a little bit better, a little stronger signal. Because I looked at the last broadcast that we did from out here, and I was just a blur. And it might have been a blur when we were filming it anyway. Who knows? But it was horrible. And Mother was watching it. I found out. She said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Mother, that's just the way I want to look." But anyway, we got a new modem and router sent in from our Wi-Fi provider, because that was one of the problems. And my IT man right there, Mr. Kevin Jackson, came over and spent a couple of hours diddling, dawdling around with an old, what do you call that thing you put in the wall? An extender? You brought your he fiddled and played with his extender over here in the Pigpen for a couple of hours.
Actually fiddled and played with your extender, and
yeah, and that made all the kids happy too. Yeah. But anyway, we got clear picture here this evening, and I'm happy for that. And got some new studio lights, Sarah, from one of our local stores for only like $29, folks. So
yeah, helping you look good, and I'm still kind of in the dark, but I
appreciate the donations that were sent in to buy that too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. So on Thursday night, I'm over at your house with the extender, and on Friday night, I am actually got to go to the Greenville Swamp Rabbits hockey game. They are minor league hockey here at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. People may remember years ago we had
that date night for you and your wife. Did you take her to the hockey game on date night?
Well, I did. Actually, she took me because this was all set up part of her workplace. They're she's a part of a company that sponsors over there at Bond Scores Wellness. So we actually
strike me as the hockey type gal when I met her.
No, I don't think she cares about hockey, but it's like a free tickets in the suite at the Bond Scores Wellness.
Somebody that's full of hockey already. Yeah. So on with your hockey story.
Her company's a pretty large sponsor over there, and they different groups within the company is able to kind of reserve their suite. They have a suite over there at the Bond Scores Wellness Arena, so we got to sit in there and had some free beverages and stuff, and the food didn't come free, but that's all right. We got some of that and had a good time and got a little bit of the action to show here. See if we can show this.
Oh, yeah, action of the hockey game.
Yeah, hockey. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Woo. I know what you're talking about. We got a little action here to show, the wife's party.
We'll actually show.
That's what hockey looks like.
That's what hockey looks like. I have low upstream bandwidth too. This kind of makes our jobs a little hard every time we try and do this, but one day I'm going to just go and get the packages.
It worked earlier today when you showed me.
It always works. This was the fight, and like I said, I don't understand this whole streaming thing exactly. Anyway, it was a good time over there at the Bond Scores Wellness Arena, and got to enjoy a night of that, and got to see some fights. And JB says, I did forget Tuesday night. I was actually over at Blue Ridge with JB. He says that he got me some free food on Tuesday. JB Brown, our Prepcast colleague. I did go over there and catch the Landrum versus Blue Ridge basketball game. Very entertaining ball game. Landrum pulling away on that one in the last few seconds there. 2-point victory of margin over there at Blue Ridge High. Speaking of which, Landrum then come home and had a 52-50 win versus 4A Greenville on Friday night. So Landrum Cardinals boys basketball doing pretty well so far.
I did read that, and I thought that was very impressive. Now, if somebody saw this glass and they've already texted me privately, it is wine, but it is cheer wine. I've already got a text on my phone over here.
Be ye not drunk on cheer wine.
Yeah. So, are you drinking a glass of wine? I found out this is an interesting, not to change the subject or anything, but we will just for a moment. Everybody thinks that our founding fathers were teetotalers or whatever you want to say. And if I could get this right quick, if I did mark the spot, I may not have.
What's a teetotaler?
Well, I think a teetotaler is somebody that doesn't drink at all. I think, or else it's somebody that's just a raging drunk. I'm not really sure.
You've covered a good bit of the spectrum there.
Well, when you find something, then you can't find it. That's what makes me mad. But anyway, they like it was September the 15th, the week of September the 15th, I think 1787, I believe it was. And hello, Duke. And
hello
the constitutional fathers to ratify and draw up the Constitution of the United States. Only 44 out of so many people actually showed up. 19 people didn't show up. The only thing, one thing that still stands out in history that's actually attainable is the liquor bill. Those rascals, I read it. Those rascals drank like 77 bottles of a certain kind of wine, then 77 bottles of another kind of wine, 14 gallons of whiskey, and 4 punch bowls, it says, that were big enough for ducks to swim in them. It was loaded punch, of course.
And 2 bottles of Granny's Campobello Crippler.
Exactly. And so the liquor bill came to, several $1,000s. I mean, which was, big money back then. I think it might have been like $25,000 to $30,000, to equivalent today, like $1 million, I'd say. And the thing is, they were supposed to convene on the 16th. They were there on the 15th, supposed to sign on the 16th. Everybody was hungover and drunk. And they signed it on the 17th in Philadelphia. And they said that it was so hot in that summer. It was in the summer. And I said October. I didn't say the month, but it was summertime. And it was so hot. And here they all dressed in their woolen clothes and sweating and drinking and drunk. And it described in it that the whole inside of Philadelphia Hall smelled like a cattle barn. All them old trucks. But anyway, I digress. I should never have let somebody give me this book. And this is one you read when you're on the crapper. It's called Uncle John's Legendary Lost Bathroom Reader. And it's just full of stupid crap.
Well, it's good to see that all the pages are still white.
There's no centerfold, though.
Anyway, we also had a comment coming in, Nelson Edwards, who's been with us on several of these streams. Thank you for supporting us, saying, hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving. We did. It was a good Thanksgiving break, and now it's back in the regular swing of things. And
yeah, I'll tell something, Nelson, right? For Nelson, he's a good guy. Thank you for tuning in. And right out of the book by George Washington, Nelson, associate with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation, for it is better to be alone than in bad company. So you better get out of here, buddy, because you're in bad company in the Pigpen. By George. Okay, thank you, Nelson, for tuning in. I'm just joking, man.
But that was pretty much our weekend review here, and we'll go ahead and move into our next topic here, which is the topic of the day that everyone seems to be crying over here in the upstate area and maybe around the country here tonight is the college football playoff selection. As many of the Roman mobs out in full effect here today as the top 4 teams in the country decided for the 2023 college football playoff championship. Maybe it's 2024 since it's technically crowned in 2024. I always
yeah. What's the trophy going to say? It's going to say the season was in 2023.
But I think it'll say 2024 because it's played in 2024. Yeah. Gotcha. So we'll throw up this graphic here on the screens, and these were the top 4 teams as decided by the selection committee today. So the unsurprising number 1, which most people thought would be, maybe there was some kind of talk that Washington was lobbying hard to be number 1 because they would rather have played in the Rose Bowl than have to come to Louisiana to play in the Sugar Bowl. But
man, they don't want to have a good time in New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah. But instead, they're going to take the unanimous number 1 there. It seems to be it for Michigan. Washington.
We're not going down there to Louisiana. Somebody might put a root bag on us down there.
Washington winds up being the number 2 seed, the winners of the last ever winners of the Pac-12, as most of those will fold into the Big Ten next year. Number 3 is the Texas Longhorns, whose only loss of the year, they are the Big 12 champions. They're on the move next year to the SEC, but they won the Big 12 in their last year in conference. Their only loss to number 4, Alabama, 12-1. Their only loss to Texas at home in September. And those are your top 4 of the selection committee. And this is where the controversies come into effect, Steve. And
I think anybody's happy about that.
No, I don't think anybody.
You're happy if you are the die in the wool SEC fan. You know, you've got 2 in there, which is really makes. I mean, excuse me. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got the graphic of 5 and 6. You just fooled me up. Suddenly, we've got 6 teams in the playoff. No, but a 12-1 team gets in by virtue of beating a team that ended up being 12-1 because you put that 1 on them. And of course, I'm talking about Alabama and the Georgia situation. And then you got a 12-1 Texas team in there. 13 and 10, 2 undefeated at 13-0. Very interesting scenarios we were discussing earlier about the what ifs. If you'd like to elaborate, you know where I want to go, but I can't say it. The what ifs and why is Alabama there? By virtue of winning the SEC? Is that what it's all about? You win the the
Well,
SEC?
there are multiple things that I'm gonna try and find one of the graphics that details the responsibilities of the college football playoff committee. Selection criteria is what I'm looking for as we go live here.
All these kind of things, but how many Power 5 teams are that they play, and just all kind of things. But you want my opinion? I'm looking at the two of the best teams that are. If anybody can beat Alabama, of course we know Texas has. Can you do it again? Alabama's playing much better football now than they were when they met Texas earlier in the season, especially at the quarterback spot. That guy showed.
So here is the, and I'm going to try and get this to bring up on. I need to pull back for just a second to load this graphic, but I'm going to try and get the college football playoff selection committee's requirements. It should be coming up to my folder here to be able to display on the screen here in just a second. At least it should. But while we're waiting on that, I'll just start. The selection committee will select the teams using a process that distinguishes among otherwise comparable teams by considering the following: conference championships won, strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, comparative outcomes of common opponents without incenting margin of victory, and other relevant factors such as unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected a team's performance during the season or will likely affect its postseason experience, which is really the key factor in all of this, because 2 weeks ago, as many people probably already know that may be listening here, 2 weeks ago, Florida State had its quarterback versus South Alabama go down with a season-ending knee injury. And then the backup quarterback versus Florida the following week sustained a head injury. So literally Florida State went into the ACC championship this week on its third-string quarterback, and I think he finished with like 59 yards passing. It was a bad effort. They won 16-6, though, over Louisville. Florida State's defense carrying them to that victory. So, as we have some of our buddies joining in here, Elton Chapman saying, "Don't burn down the Pigpen, Roper. I see fire." And he's always it's not Roper's forked tongue on fire tonight. It's just
I'm on fire. I'm on fire, Elton. I'm on fire. Let me go put that fire out. Oh.
But
I'm on fire.
So that being said, and JB's in here saying that his wife is a Michigan grad, so go Big Blue. Those were the people that were probably the least nervous today, because I think Michigan fans knew they were probably going to be number one unless anything foreseen happened, even though Washington did actually have a legitimate argument, I thought, based on strength of schedule to be number one, but Michigan had pretty much been ensconced in that number two, number one area with them in Georgia for most of the year.
I told you this earlier, that out of all these that are playing, the one that has impressed me the most offensively, believe it or not, and at times defensively, and it's Washington. Their offensive line, to me, is the best that's amongst all of these. If you've watched that game yesterday, their guards and their tackles, when they would pull on straight, old-fashioned smash mouth football, sweep to the right, sweep to the left, pull your guards, pull your tackle, trap blocks and such. These guys were just rocking it. A textbook. It was a thing of beauty. And I wouldn't count them the Washington Huskies out to surprise somebody. Really.
Yeah,
really.
I think Texas looked really good offensively yesterday. Steve Sarkisian can really call some offensive football. Do they have a stout enough defense? That's always going to be the argument for any team from the Big 12. Can they play defensively well enough to make that count? And that's kind of thing where Washington, I think, really, like you said, Steve, could really potentially do some good things there because they seem to have a little better defense than Texas in that matchup. And like I said, I think Washington will be able to control the ball and the clock and eat up some yards in that matchup. But going back,
that's exactly what they managed to do the other night there at the end of the game to keep the ball out of the hands of Oregon. They've managed to run the ball. Everybody for this season, that we've heard that so much this season. Everybody's abandoning the pass and wanting to go back to old-fashioned football. He who runs the ball will win. And I think people are tired of all the great passing games and seeing all this crazy passing, long and beautiful, the spread offense. They enjoy seeing some talented running backs break off big runs or great, to think that we see, not to change the subject, but watching San Francisco a while ago, that was a great pass play. Deebo Samuels made a great play today, on a little slant. But people do want to see more out of the running game, and McCaffrey is a good example of bringing that back to popularity too, and it's hopefully transparent back down into college football.
Yeah, and even our local Carolina Panthers had a 4th and 1 to kind of extend the game. Instead, they try to throw it deep and turn the ball over, and it's just like run the ball. So it really came down to, I think most people kind of going into today figured definitely you were going to have Michigan, Washington at that combo of 1 and 2, likely in the order that it wound up finishing. I think a lot of people probably figured that Texas, with Georgia losing out, and really, Georgia had an argument that, the only game they've lost in 3 years was last night, and you bumped them all the way down to 6. And so that was a tough feed too, and as well. But kind of, I think a lot of people felt Texas would get in there on that 3 seed, but it was going to be the 4 seed. And like I said, probably, unfortunately, as it's been with the college football playoff, as it was with the BCS, as it's always been, later season wins and losses always have weighed more than early season wins and losses.
Oh yeah, baby.
Whether that's fair or not, life isn't fair. I mean, it is what it is. And part of the
do you mind if I put my hair up a bit while you talk?
You put it in a ponytail for all I care, Put it in a bun.
The man bun. Tomorrow is my great aunt's birthday. She would have been 100 and about 125 now had she still alive.
Was that her old wig?
Yes, sir. It really was. This is my Auntie Gail White's wig.
But
she wanted it.
When you look at what the job of the playoff committee has been, it has been described by many of the people on that committee to provide the 4 best teams for the playoffs. And
would you like to tell us who one illustrious member of that committee is, Kevin?
Well, the head of the committee is the head of the committee. I think he's from NC State. Well, it is.
Surely he's not going to vote for Florida State, then, is he?
Selection committee. Tell who the committee members here. There's a big roster of people here.
Well, I'm sure our fans here are
the head of it is a man named Boo Corrigan. It's a grown man named Boo.
Boo Corrigan.
He is the director of athletics for NC State. So he is ultimately the face of this committee. Other members of it are, if it'll refresh right here, we have, trying to think of people that I actually recognize. Jim Grove, which was a college coach for many years, I recognize him. The rest of them, I'll be honest with you, I don't even recognize these people. Let me throw up, see if I can throw up.
Will you throw that up? And I'm going to read some of these quotes. Nelson says, I would not like to play Alabama now. They are playing pretty good, and he is correct. Right now, Alabama over Michigan, he says. Now, my man Elton says, but you worked your butts off to go 13-0. And don't get to the top, question mark, question mark. He must be very inquisitive about that, question mark, isn't he? I don't care if your number one star player got hurt and can't play. Why penalize the rest of the team? One player doesn't make the team. Elton, you're exactly right. I told Kevin today, by doing so, the possibility of a Cinderella story was taken away. There's that bunch of crooks right there. You know, it doesn't cause. Think of this. If Clemson had won the ACC, went 12-0, and did the same as Florida State, and had they done it with a third string, or wait a minute, a freshman quarterback. I mean, they played a freshman quarterback years ago, but they were winning real good. He was great, right? But what if they came down to a third string player like that and they didn't get in? You know, do you think Clemson gets in, unlike Florida State not getting in because of a third string? I think there was some punishment going on there, some retribution or something. They won the ACC outright. You know, thank goodness we're going to have more teams in a playoff system soon.
So let's just read off some of the bios.
It's not enough.
Let's just read off some of the bios of the selection committee so we know who it is. Chris Alt, he is the retired former head football coach and director of athletics at the University of Nevada. So he looks like he's all in for Nevada. Mitch Barnhart, he is, I've already read this, but he is the athletic director at the University of Kentucky. So there's an SEC guy. Boo Corrigan's an ACC athletic director. We know that. Chet is the director of athletics at the U.S. Naval Academy. He's from Boston College. So, I mean, he got his undergrad degree at Boston College, University of Massachusetts Amherst. Let's see who else here is on this committee. Jim Grove, I know, is the head football coach at Wake Forest for several years. He was also at Baylor for, looks like, a year. So he's got some ACC, some Big 12. Has who else? Max Harlan.
One of them looks like a Mid-Atlantic wrestler right there, like or WWF old George the Animal Steel.
Yeah, this guy's the athletics director for the University of Utah, so that's a Pac-12 at least till next year. Wade Manuel is the director of athletics at the University of Michigan. You know,
this is a local just a local YouTube little broadcast, whatever you want to call it. But am I civilly liable by referring to this guy as being uglier than a pan full of fried buttholes?
I don't know what slander laws are on the broadcast, but you are probably liable. You just probably nobody will see it. But
I mean, this guy right here, look at him. He looks like if Bella Lugosi and Phyllis Diller had a child and they put it up for adoption. That's him right there. For real.
The director of athletics, Miami University of Ohio. That's David Saylor. Will Shields.
Oh, Saylor.
Owns and operates a gymnasium and sports park in Overland. Well, good God Almighty. He had to have done something.
Don't touch on this subject. Pass on. We can't say nothing about that. Can't say nothing
about
this
what?
Gentleman. We can't say anything wrong about this gentleman. No hisses, no boos, no nothing. I'm gonna be politically correct. Go to the next person.
No, we can't hear. Let's see I want to see what his resume is here. He's a former player. He's a former football player. He's an NFL football player. So, yeah, played at consensus All-American offensive lineman Outland Trophy winner at guard.
All right.
played in the NFL for 14 years, but he's not. Oh, he's not actively engaged in college athletics currently, like most of the committee is.
That's the kind of voice you need on the committee. One that's not actively involved with any university or anything like that in no capacity.
Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor, Director of Athletics, Kansas State. Then Joe Taylor.
Ooh. Skip on down to the bottom. I don't know.
This is he's the Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics and Community Wellness at Virginia Union University. He's been a head football coach at several universities: Florida A&M, Hampton, Virginia Union, Howard. He's a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, so he's got some credentials. Rod West.
Wild West.
Is the group president for utility operations for Entergy Corporation. So he's an energy magnet. He's been the past president of the All-State Sugar Bowl. He does have a little bit of a football background, but he's been more of the business. He's
going to give him the business. Whoa, look at yonder. Hold everything.
And then we have...
Yeah, who is that?
Kelly Whiteside, professor at Montclair State University. And she's a longtime college football writer. She's covered the Olympics as well as a multitude of sports. So she's more of your writer from the writer's aspect.
Woohoo! I'd say so.
So you have those from the football background. You have, your professional writers, and you have your business magnets that have been all involved. Those are the people.
Oh, is he saying she's a professional girl, eh?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But these are the people that are responsible for as to why you have the selection that you have today, which so we'll back out of here and come back to our Pigpen here. But I do think so. Yes, everybody's going to sit here and say that Florida State was robbed and all this, but ultimately, I think their job is to get the best 4 teams in.
We were robbed.
And my opinion, it's just mine, and I really don't care, is that there's no way that you can tell me. I understand one player doesn't make the team, but you can't tell me that Florida State has a snowball's chance, and where, of going to Michigan with a third-string quarterback and potentially winning that ball game. You do not want to just give Michigan an empty and a wide open invitation to go to the title game unchecked.
Yeah,
right now, as of today, Michigan,
as I was flying in, but you're right.
Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama are the 4 best teams in the country. And to be honest with you, Georgia's better than Florida State. Even if Jordan Travis is there, don't tell me that Georgia's still not better than Florida State.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Been number 1 for 3 years, essentially.
And if Alabama and Georgia were to play in the championship game, if that had worked out, I'd say Georgia would beat them. That's just whoever gets the ball last. That's what it's all about.
We have one of our resident ACC apologists that are going to come in here in just a moment and join us here on the broadcast, Mr. Justin Mathis.
Oh, I got to straighten up.
Him and several of his other
pour another glass of cheer wine.
Several of him and his other writing buddies have been crying the Florida State anthem here today, but we're going to hear from him, get his side of it. But I just think, at this time that these are the 4 best teams available, and you're going to sit here and say, well, it's not fair. Well, life ain't fair. And these kids are going to learn. They're not, well, number one, they're not kids. As soon as they lobbied for and got NIL and getting paid to do stuff, they're not kids. They're grown men. So guess what? Grown men's going to find out grown men lessons.
That's right. You got to grow up sometime. There's nothing worse than a grown man that acts like a kid. My mother tells me that every day. And here's to that.
This cheer wine's for you.
It really is. I swear to you, cheer wine. I mean, you want me to shake it up and watch it fizz? As I pour, you can see the sparkling bubbles I mean, nobody would do wine like that. See it fizz? So,
We'll be joined here shortly as soon as Justin can figure out how to operate a phone.
I do not drink, Kevin, and you know that. And I want everybody else to know that. The only time that I ever partake is at communion. And we have communion a lot around here, Tuesdays evenings, Wednesday evenings.
It helps if you go for daily communion.
Yeah, it does. And I'm not even Catholic, but I'm thinking about turning into one.
So let me show you another graphic. It's interesting as we wait for Justin to get on the air here.
Elton says he thinks Clemson would have got in the same scenario. I think that's what he's referring to.
So let me make sure. So this is actually based on next year's criteria. This is actually because next year, the interesting thing is that the college football playoffs moves to a 12-team format. The conference championships have an auto qualifier. So if next year's rules applied to this year's format, these are the teams that would get in. Liberty, 12-0, winners of, I think that was Conference USA. Even though they're 23rd ranked, they would be an auto qualifier, and they would go in a first-round matchup to Florida State, the ACC champion. Alabama, being in the top 4, would host the quarterfinal. They would have an opening round bye. Missouri, being a top, I guess probably what most we used to would have called an at-large bid, would go to Oregon in a first-round matchup. They would then match up with Michigan, who would be on a bye in the quarterfinal. Then you would have Ole Miss and Georgia, again, at-large teams, not part of the auto qualifiers and stuff. Ole Miss and Georgia would face off, the winner to go to Texas. And then Penn State and Ohio State would match off. The winner of that would go to Washington. That is if this year's format applied, or if next year's format applied to this year, this would certainly get some more teams. But as people have said all day, in basketball, you have 68 teams, and you still have people arguing about who should get in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I doubt we'll ever get a consensus of who all could be in and such. And but
the only thing feasible that will ever happen is to expand it to like the division to 16 games or 12 or whatever it may be. You're going to have to get the teams that want to be eligible to play for a national championship to always sit down and say, all right, they're going to play X amount of games. You're going to get rid of, say, Carolina playing Wofford or Clemson playing Wofford, and these little things like that. Going to get rid of these games, these little money games. And it's going to hurt the small colleges, true, But because people are going to say the season is beginning to be too long. The playoff season would extend all the way into January at this point unless you shorten the regular season somehow. If you've got 8 teams in a conference, you play 8 conference games, and then it's right to the playoffs or whatever.
And we'll go to one more comment here, and then we'll bring in Justin, who's ready and waiting on the line. It's Elton again saying,
he's having a fit. Get him on.
He said, I don't care either way, but I wish they had just come out and said, you're not good enough. Don't say it's because your best player is hurt, then it makes it look like the rest of the team aren't good enough without him. Well, if you watch the second half of South Alabama and the Florida game, they're not. But and the Louisville game, they're not. But, and I think that's why I had a lot, like I said, late games in the year, a lot of things. As we bring on our ACC apologist, Mr. Justin Mathis, we'll bring him on full screen right here, right quick, before we come back to our format. Justin, welcome to the podcast, sir. Can you hear us?
I got you loud and clear.
All right. Well, take a look at this graphic, or we can pull back up the next year's format. Tell us what you want to contribute to the conversation here, Justin.
I mean, obviously this year I didn't really have much of a dog in the fight, but it was just kind of interesting to kind of, be on the outside looking in. It's kind of weird, after so many years of Clemson being in the mix.
been outside
But,
looking in for years, but mostly people's window next door.
Oh my. Anyway, but I just I didn't really actually watch the ACC championship game last night, but I mean I've
What?
seen.
Why?
I was actually locked in on a different conference championship game, and
why was that, Kevin? Why
well,
didn't you watch the ACC game?
A, Clemson wasn't playing, and B, I was actually locked in on another conference championship game that affected another part of the rankings. So,
those Carolina fans.
Who was you watching, Justin?
I actually was watching the American Conference Championship, the AAC.
And who won that?
SMU with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Which makes things all the more interesting on the subject to do with FSU.
Or what conference is it that Liberty's a part of? Because I know
Conference USA.
Conference USA. That I call them the Fighting Falwells. Is up there at Liberty with Jamie, the former Crusader coach down there.
Come out, oh evil football demons! We're here to praise the gridiron gods.
Tell you what, though, I've seen some facilities for Liberty, and good.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You think they passed the plate every game? Why not have great facilities?
Have you seen the
in the first quarter, one in the third quarter? Then when they hit you when you go out the gate.
Steve, have you seen a picture of the indoor facility?
Yeah, it's very nice. I like the flushing attachment they added to it.
Liberty football facility. I'm gonna look this up because I saw it and I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean,
can it match or equal Strom Thurmond High School's facilities?
Oh yeah, I believe it can.
But that's the reason I was watching the American at the AAC championship, because if Tulane won, they would have been the highest ranked in all likelihood group of 5 team, which would have gotten that spot in the Fiesta Bowl.
Mm-hmm. I was watching App State, and I got busy and I left. And you know what? I can't even tell you what the outcome of that was.
Troy won, I believe.
Yeah, and that was.
I saw the Troy coach. Was it the Troy coach who was pitching?
Yes. Guy got his quarterback. Guy literally grabbed right here on the side of his face mask, and boy, it was just like somebody had.
I did see
thrown something at a family member of his.
I did see that.
Yeah, and so that's why he was upset. The commentator initially said, "Oh, probably got hit late." They showed the replay. Defender's hand literally went right here inside the side of his helmet, and I went, "Okay, yeah, I get it."
Well, I will always pull for App State, and I'll tell you why. Justin, you should too. App State has taken a chance on many Chapman Panthers.
Yeah, and DeMarco Jackson.
Yeah. So Anthony Smith, Antonio Smith, and Otis Smith all went to App State. And if you look into the record books for punt returns and some receiving yardages, I think you will see their names listed amongst some of the all-time leaders. So
and DeMarco Jackson out of Broome High School, who's now playing with the Saints in the NFL today. So,
and your Panthers well represented this evening by the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes. Deebo Samuel said, "Hello, everybody." That's what he said. Just reminding you that I'm here. But I just
who would have been your top 4?
I would have still kept FSU 4. It's unpopular opinion, it seems like, but you can't argue against the thing that broke my heart about this whole ordeal. Did you see what Jordan Travis said? The quarterback.
That he wished he broke his leg earlier so it wouldn't have penalized him as much?
Yeah, because he felt like it all was his fault.
That's what he literally said. Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm just like, when you've done that to a college athlete.
Yeah, but don't call him a kid. He's getting paid, Justin.
No, I didn't say kid. I said college athlete.
Justin, do you think, and this kind of just dawned on me, do you think that some of the folks on this committee could have assumed, because Clemson wasn't as strong and powerful this year as they usually are, and Florida State was up on the up and coming this year, because we saw that coming within the last season.
Yeah.
Do you think that this committee really thought that the ACC just wasn't really strong enough this season? So strength of schedule played a part in this decision, on top of them coming in with a third string quarterback, and they feel that this wouldn't offer quality top competition to be in the top four, giving somebody an easy patsy win where somebody else would turn around and say, you know what, they got the easiest draw in this thing. There's no easy draw right here in this thing, right here. I do wish that it was flipped around a little bit. I don't like the idea of. Go ahead. I think that the networks and everybody else are hoping for a rematch of Alabama and Texas. That's great.
It's
great for the rating.
I will say,
I'm put it in a nice way possible. The TV people have influence. I think it's the nicest way I can sum it up.
The smartest thing you have ever said.
Now, I will bring this up.
The bravest thing of it. I'll drink Cheerwine to that.
Steve was bringing up that he's got a buddy that's all into conspiracy theories, and
fun!
I did see one conspiracy theory today that I don't believe for a minute or for a second, but I think it's highly entertaining, and I'm going to bring it up. So, Justin, I'll follow the math here, or follow the path at least here.
Hold up. I was told there'd be no math involved.
No, there will be no math. You just got to be able to connect.
Hey, Justin, I'm really quick with math. Just throw a number. Just throw something out there for me. Either one of you. I'm really quick with it.
13 by 14.
7.
13 by 14.
7.
No. Anyway, Kevin, go ahead.
But it was quick.
Yeah, it don't have to be right. It's quick. So here's a conspiracy, Justin. If I'm ready for you and all of our audience here to
Justin
hear.
was in the grassy knoll.
Yes.
No.
We have the ability now through technology to place you there, so just warn you. But anyway, conspiracy is
the grassy knoll.
And we're not going to delve into the politics behind this, but here's the conspiracy theory, Justin. Who owns ESPN ABC?
Disney.
And in which state did Disney get into it with earlier this year?
Florida.
Florida. And where is the capital of Florida?
Is it Tallahassee?
Tallahassee. And who plays in Tallahassee?
FSU.
So there's your go wild, you tinfoil hat wearing people.
You see the conspiracy there, Justin?
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I followed the math.
Yeah, follow the numbers. The numbers don't lie.
There used to be a show by that name, Numbers Never Lie.
Well, we said we'd stray away from politics. You could leave me.
No, it wasn't political. I'm just saying there was actually a show on ESPN for a couple of years.
Just my mind.
Justin, we'll keep you on here. We'll actually pivot because I think we beat this thing up to death. Bottom line is, these are your four, and be interested to see if Florida State. A lot of people's trying to get them to boycott the bowl, which I think would be the wrong thing as well. Because again,
it'd be stupid.
If we're all
give that young quarterback all the time that he can get some more reps, and it's a free practice time for next year. That's why a bowl game. South Carolina is not going to get those weeks of practice, and that's going to hurt you in the long run.
So, with that being said, it's it's never going to be right. Even when they go next year, somebody said we're going to be sitting here a year from now arguing which 9-3 team is going to make the playoff. It's going to be something like it. And I really think that in the upcoming years, now that we're going to see the SEC and the Big 12 the Big 10 expand, by the way,
need to change their name since they keep expanding.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of rename go on and all this and stuff. But
the Big 16
West Coast teams joining the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, well, you got Stanford and Cal that's joining the ACC.
Yep, Stanford and Cal.
Which the deciding vote on that also was Mr. Boo from North Carolina State. Steve, if you want to cue that up for us on our Boo here.
Boo.
But going into next year, the super conferences, I really even think hurt the SEC and Big Ten. They think it's going to strengthen them from numbers, but really now all those teams, I don't see any of those teams when you go into that schedule being able to come out of this thing undefeated. So you're going to have a lot of 1 and 2 loss teams that really could be better than a team from like the ACC that's going to come through without a whole lot of competition, or even from the Conference USA, from the athletic conference, whatever it is that you were talking about, whatever the Pac-12 becomes, and all that. You could have an undefeated team from there that simply rises in the polls but don't get penalized because they don't play any competition. So we'll have to see what happens. The remnants of the Big 12 and Pac-12 and everything, whatever left of the ACC.
In my opinion, in college football this year, there were some teams out in the Midwest and further. Iowa's playing good football. I mean,
playing good defense.
Yeah, defense.
And there's a lot of good college football out there this year, and I think the portal did play a huge part in a lot of that. Of course, getting some of these teams that have been kind of cast obscurely to the back burner the last several years, and now you've seen them being a little bit more competitive, and that's good in a way, but I still think this thing is bad in the long run. And I do agree with Dabba Dabba Doo on the portal, and I do agree on the NIL being a bad thing too. Because you know what it's going to come down to? The NIL, now that was it Georgia that passed a little law for the high school and things like this. When you try to do a podcast, try to do a live video on a Friday night of your local high school football team, are you going to have to pay for the likeness of this kid that's out there on high school to broadcast?
And that's a nightmare for people like us.
That could come down the pike in 3 or 4 years if you went that way. Now, I really don't think South Carolina would ever go to. Now we've jumped off the subject.
We can hope,
but that's how the NIL is even trickled down into, because you've got high school kids that are starting to market themselves by the time they're in the 8th grade. We all know that 8th graders marketing themselves on social media. Kevin, I think me and you were riling, or basically you were fussing a couple of weeks ago about, we won't say who, what, when, where, of what certain kid at a certain school had these social media posts of himself out there trying to market himself to colleges. You remember who we talk about, but and it's, in your opinion, which was correct, it's just uncalled for, in his situation.
Well, speaking of, let's pivot here to high school state championship.
Yeah, let's dodge that.
Can I give a quick shout out though before we pivot?
Yeah, go ahead.
To the Liberty Flames, we've already mentioned him. Jamie Chadwell, he was at North Greenville when I was a student, and so he's a proven winner everywhere he's been. And I predict within the next, I'd say 4 or 5 years, he's going to land a Power 5 job. I mean, that offense he runs, it's one of a kind. Nobody else does it. It blends everything, option principles, short passing game, RPO. It blends all this stuff together. Nobody else does that. And so, say that again?
A volatile cocktail.
Yeah. And shout out to one of the co-offensive coordinators up there, former North Greenville quarterback Willie Korn. He's actually calling a lot of the plays now.
One last comment on our college, and we'll pivot to high school for a few minutes here. Nelson again coming back with think about the recruiting for the ACC. The recruits will say FSU went 12-0 and I'm not going to these schools. No respect for the wins. Well, it very well could come down to that, especially as these super conferences. Essentially, we're going to have the Power 2, I think, in the next few years with the Big Ten and SEC, and the ACC is kind of going to be a third tier up underneath that. And then whatever the remnants of the other conferences, you're going to have 1A, 1B. You're going to have ACC kind of at a 3, and then everybody else just feeding for crumbs underneath. So,
yeah,
see how all that goes. Let's pivot to the South Carolina High School League state champions. Again, we had those took place at Benedict College this past week, and
we had 3 state champions, right?
We had 5, but 3 that are officially recognized. That's what I was thinking. Steve was referencing just a minute or so ago. But we'll go through and acknowledge, because the players do play and they did earn their win and stuff. So we'll give them their shot. We'll give them their credit and stuff. But
well, for a couple of them, we'll put "earn" in air quotes.
So in the 1A rank, we had Christchurch victorious. That was like what, 67?
Yeah, what much of a game?
Over Johnsonville. That's the second straight year in a row that they've defeated Johnsonville, I believe. When
your team mascot's a Brats, what do you expect? You can't play hard for that.
Actually, the Flashes.
Oh, fighting Brats! Johnsonville Brats! Rah, rah, rah!
Grill.
Push that Brats across the line.
But yeah, I hated that for Johnsonville. It was just, it just wasn't a fair fight. Not trying to be mean, but calling it like it is.
When you have Greenville with a population of 70,000 versus probably less than 2 down at Johnsonville, it's not a fair fight, we don't think.
Look at those percentages, and that's all I'm gonna say.
At the 2A level, now we're going to dwell a little bit. We're going to tiptoe around some things at the 2A level here. I think everyone knows our feeling about the charter schools and the we have talked to that, and that's not the controversy that I really want to dive into, but I'm not going to dive into it. I'm going to skirt around it. I want to dive into it, Justin.
Can I say something about it?
The people want to hear.
I'm going to sort of skirt around Orangeburg. It was SC State this year, not Bentley College. SC State University. That's right. Thank you, JB Brown. I'm going to give you credit on that.
JB.
It was at Benedict for a few years, and I don't know why I'm showing this again, but it was go away, chat.
And at one point, the press box elevator quit working this weekend.
Did you get on that press box elevator and break it, Justin?
I stayed here in Spartanburg County, sir.
Got a weight limit on that thing, It was looking at me telling you.
How about that elevator? Press 1.
Sorry, I have a game I'm watching in the background.
What you're saying is, with the South Carolina High School League involved, their elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. Is that what we're saying?
I'm gonna plead the fifth. I'm gonna plead the fifth.
So the state championship for the 2A level went between the Upper State Gray Collegiate Academy Eagles and the Oceanside Collegiate Academy Land Sharks. The Pinnacle Bowl. The Pinnacle Bowl, as we'll call it.
I call it the Vacant Bowl.
But here, Justin, I would love to know your perspective, your journalistic perspective on this. And we're going to leave a lot of names and go fully off of it, because we're not a journalistic outlet here. We're just asking some questions of journalistic responsibilities here, and I want your opinion on it, since
I technically still have a press pass.
Well, that's true, but like I said, we're going to not involve names and get all into the weeds on it and stuff. But
we're not going to say James Johnson or Mike Joe or Bubba Joe or whoever.
Well, we can give you some names. None of them are actual people involved. But
Jimmy Bob Smith.
Yeah, I guarantee there's no Jim Bob on any of Oceanside or Gray Collegiate. But anyway, so
Jim Robert.
To cut to the chase here, at some point during warm-ups, Justin, during the state championship, the alleged, and there was a reporter who works Midlands area, maybe more toward the coastal area, made a report from talking, and his report said that he talked to the commissioner, Jerome Singleton, who said that the South Carolina State Campus Police said that there was a questionable social media post from an Oceanside player. And that as a result, they asked the player to leave the facility.
And now, I know the reporter you're referring to.
Yeah, and like I said, we're not getting into the deep weeds on this, but here's where I have the problem.
Weed? Who said weed?
Because at the end of the day, Oceanside won anyway.
Yeah.
The margin of victory, you can argue, wound up being more than it would have been potentially if this player, because from what I understand, the player involved was one of their best players, senior captain.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty good player. It could have affected potentially the outcome of the game. But here was my issue with it. Number one, if this was a social media post that was made, it's public record. If people are going on record for this post being made, why haven't any of the journalists in that area posted the tweet? They're posting pregame hype videos, but they can't post a major story, which in my opinion, a player getting escorted out of a state championship facility and not allowed to play is a major story and major news.
Yeah.
So why can't, and granted, from what we've all heard, potentially what this may have been, and in our opinions, it really wasn't anything to warrant the reaction it got. I'm not trying to slander anyone here, but I'm just trying to say here, if it wasn't anything, then why hasn't anyone in these outlets posted what it is, gotten the reactions from the coaches involved, gotten a quote on record from the South Carolina high school commissioner, and then tried to investigate who all reported said tweet to these campus police in order to stir this whole thing? Who walked in there and why? And I don't understand why this wasn't a bigger story. I think, honestly, based on the speculation that the kid is completely innocent in all this, he just made I'm going to paraphrase what it was, but we're going to go take care of those Eagles. Something that's what I heard. And
I heard it was on a different social media platform. It's one that I don't use.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what social media platform it was, but it was something about, it was just in nature of competition against the other team. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't anything to warrant said player being escorted out of the facility. This kid, from all accounts and factors, seems to be a high character kid. He just made a statement that someone, I believe, overly sensitive took and made a decision last minute where they should have addressed it and done much earlier in the day. But these are all decisions. When was anyone made aware of it? What was the reaction? But we've heard nothing on it. And I just don't understand how this could not be a more major story involved.
And I mean, Kevin, I remember when I was growing up, I remember seeing stuff in the paper about someone that happened to do, I can't remember exactly the exact circumstances, but a couple of times they ended up being a star local high school athlete in whatever sport it was, and they ended up on the wrong side of things. They did something, obviously nothing to do with social media. Social media was nowhere near what it is today. I mean, social media is entirely its own different animal, and that's kind of why I try and limit my exposure to it personally, unless broadcasting or writing calls for it. But I would have expected at least some sort of story, and if it's a minor, I don't know what all the restrictions are for what the people in the school district can say. I don't know what guidelines there are in that regard, because I've never been on that side of the table, so to speak. But I would have expected at least some sort of story. You're funny. To have been published saying maybe, okay, so-and-so was removed due to a social media post.
Yeah.
And stay general. You don't go specific and make it sound like you're accusatory.
Granted,
that is a good point you brought up.
Everything from these outlets are behind paywall, so maybe they did address it. But it does seem like that if it had been addressed in an article, that someone by now would have
shared it,
screenshot it, and it would have been more public knowledge. And I think a lot of people just want it to kind of go away because Oceanside won anyway. And honestly, I'm going to say this, it'll make them mad. I think a lot of these involved outlets protect these charter schools at all costs. They sure can go up to that Gray coach and interview him on a weekly basis to let him cry about how he thinks he's been just held back and disadvantaged. And they sure do love him, some of that adversity. I wanted to make one of those memes.
Adversity.
Hey, coach, you got any more of that adversity?
It's right here in this cup.
I'll drink to adversity.
But
Drink
see what I
in
did.
adversity. It is cheer wine, okay?
Yeah, you're good.
But I mean, if we're going to go to the level of posting that this happened, then everyone's naturally going to assume that the kid done something wrong. And I think it should be, if you reported as much that it happened, you owe the kid then an opportunity to clear his name, especially if he's collegiately bound athletically. All of them there are. So, you know, I'm not really throwing anybody on the bus. I'm just asking, why in the world, in your opinion,
you're throwing them under and driving them over and backing up over them and coming back again? But that's okay, big boy.
I'm just wondering why
somebody needs to say it. And
for a state championship, for something that could potentially have impacted the state championship, why we haven't heard more on what that happened. And then I would love to know. I would love to know what was said, even though we've kind of heard. And honestly, what I've heard, it was nothing. Nothing. This kid didn't do anything wrong.
Perhaps under
I may not like the teams, but I'm fair.
There could be a freedom of information thing that somebody could file.
That's right.
If they want to go down that road. Yeah.
I mean, if he made it, somebody obviously screenshot it and sent it to somebody. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. If they sent it to a police department and said, "Hey, you need to investigate this," then why isn't any journalist going to a Freedom of Information Act? And so, because we need to know who was it? Who involved? Was it just was the campus police randomly online and following this individual and on whatever platform it is and saw this? Likely not.
Of course, the conspiracy theorist in me, and I'll take credit for this, could say, and just say hypothetically, maybe somebody wanted to win a championship so bad
that they went to that length,
that they would go to that.
We're not saying it. We're just saying
it, but I'm just saying there's always, hypothetically speaking,
by not addressing any of this and not reporting the facts on it, though.
Yeah,
that's
I don't even know the facts. I don't know the facts, but I don't mind spreading gossip and innuendo to keep the show going.
So, with all that being said, you know, what was said? When was it said? Who reported it? At what time? Was it enough time for people to process this information and really appropriately respond to it without having to potentially deny this kid from playing for a state championship?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, what do you call it? It's a mess. There's no other way to sum it up other than there's something there that should have at least been a little bit more information provided. But I'll be honest with you, Kevin, the first thing I saw about it on my Twitter feed didn't pop up till sometime late Friday night. That's the first I had seen about it.
Yeah. I mean,
I was just kind of puzzled, like, what the heck's going on here?
If I'm that kid, I'm going
talk to my lawyer buddy.
I'm talking some lawyers. I mean, it felt very strange that this just happened right, and he was on the field warming up, and then minutes before they're getting ready to go, you get pulled. And, you know, the timing is very fishy, and I was disappointed that, considering how many media outlets are down there, how many of them are actually in the locker rooms, taking videos of their pregame stuff, showing them warm up, which I've never seen that really happen before. But
cameras are everywhere.
You know,
these guys, you know how they've all got their
and considering how they can always run to get their side of the story of how much adversity they've had to overcome just to be here tonight, you know, then I think they did try and question the Oceanside coach, but he just got well, how about that? We won anyway. But there should have been a follow-up inquisition at least to the commissioner the next day, because the public has a right, in my opinion, to know who made that complaint, where did it come from, and what was their intention.
Like, where did this all begin? What started what do you call it, the paper trail? Is that the right word?
Right. And if they report it to the police,
I would want to know if I'm the coach.
Like I said, if it was an email or a screenshot or something, or, you know, if it was sent to a police device of any sort, then that is, like we said, subject to a FOIA request, and the public should have a right to know. But we'll move on from that. I just had to get off on the soapbox because
No, you're fine, man.
They might say because it was pertaining to a juvenile, you can't get that information.
That's also a definitive possibility.
I don't think so, but anyway, I mean, you're not asking for any of the juveniles records other than the social media posts will be included all in, because we're talking about the transcription, what happened between adults and reporting this and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was just disappointed that we saw, and like I said, I tried to read the articles the next day. These outlets that write in the lower part in the coastal parts of the state all have paywalls now. So
yep. And I follow several of them, because sometimes our teams that we cover go to some of their areas, and they, like, when we're trying to put playoff brackets and stuff together, sometimes we'll message each other, hey, who do you have for this? Who won this game or that game? Trying to sort out seedings and everything.
I just think, especially something like this, I believe they should have opened that up or wrote a separate article addressing it and opened that up for people to see, because, depending on what it was, there needs to be some answers for how that happened, because you don't just kick a kid off the campus and deny him an opportunity to play a state championship. I don't care if he plays for the collegiates or not. Doing that at the last second, right before state, that's dirty pool.
And these are two words just popped in my head, Kevin. Some that don't get mentioned a lot today: libel, slander, in that category.
Right.
Oh, we're right here tonight.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why we're trying. That's what we're trying to, and that's
on any subject.
And that's what I'm saying. We didn't report that a tweet was made, and we don't know officially because no one's revealed it or showed a screenshot of what was said.
But because it's apparently been taken down.
It's apparently been taken down.
Yeah.
And stuff, but we, in our opinion, we're not going to comment on what it was because we haven't seen it. We're not going to speculate, but based on our opinion, it wasn't anything. We understand why people would be maybe sensitive, but not to the point where you could have actually thought this was some sort of threat and had any common sense.
Yeah, we're not going to go out here.
Source myself, I received it on a very credible source, a very newsworthy, credible source, and I just left it at that, and I've let y'all do all the talking about it, because
you're just trying to stay out of it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not like me going out here and saying, "Oh, so and so is missing the game because of a concussion." We don't do that here.
Yeah.
Well, we don't. That's not how we play.
What you want with a Pigpen, it's between you and your attorney.
I'm not going to go on the air and say that.
We have reported what others have said, and
we report you opine.
Yeah, we've given our opinion, but we think there ought to be some answers for it. But we'll move on up to the 3A level. One of the better games, maybe the best game out of the weekend.
It could be 1A, 1B in that argument.
Yeah, so it was Daniel over. What was the name of
Camden?
Camden. I know it's one of the C teams. 42-41 or was it 49-48?
49-48. Yeah, Daniel stopped a potential game-winning 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and that
was at the 1 yard line.
And that was certainly, just an incredible ball game. As was the 4A championship. That was West Side and
South Florence.
And South Florence, 40, right?
South Florence had a chance to put the game away, and they were running the ball, and they were getting 3 and 4 and 5 yards a clip, converting third down conversions, fourth down conversions. And it slips my mind now. I think they might have fumbled a pitch or something, caused a loss, or had made one penalty, got them behind the sticks, and West Side was able to stop them and get the ball back. What was it, Justin? About 2:23. Something like that.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, congrats to Brian Lane. He's a local guy.
Oh yeah, worked the clock. Product of Burns High School. He's coached around Woodruff and Clover.
Coached at Woodruff, Burns, Clover in that order before Westside.
And he's been fairly successful everywhere he's been.
I remember
for a while.
I remember my first year covering high school football in 2012, Steve. That was a big game between Woodruff and Chapman, because Blake Bone was Woodruff's best player. He's a very tall receiver, went to play Kentucky. it was matched up with Debo Samuel, and both of those guys played corner and receiver, so they saw a lot of each other that night, and that was a shootout. That was a treat that night. As Brian
Don't
Lane
say
there
that word. Don't
hoisting
say
that
that
trophy.
word. Shoot, they'll escort you off the Pigpen
It
property.
was it was a barn burner, you know. As Brian Lane, the phrase he said they've been
There
going
he is.
through.
There's old Brian hoisting up the colors yesterday.
Yeah,
I
he
hate to say
said,
that I snapped that off the television and then put it in a little bit of a Photoshop there, but that's him.
But yeah, I mean Brian, he's good dude by all accounts. I never gotten to speak to him personally, but just from everybody I've talked to, had nothing but good things to say about him. But I mean, congrats to him. We have a Spartanburg connection in the state championships this weekend, and congrats to him.
Fortunate enough to be an old man. I remember him and watched him play at Burns.
But it's been cool to see him.
It has to be satisfying for him after coming.
Say my name.
After going to Woodruff and going to Burns,
and Clover,
and it just didn't work out at those two locations, and people thought, well, those are two powerhouses. He ought to have been able to just turn those around and immediately win and do everything. But then to be able to go out to West Side like that and pick up this state championship for them kind of validated.
That speaks to the quality of the kids that you're coaching.
In his first year, that just kind of validates his journey and elevates him to that next tier of coaches in our state, and we're very congratulatory of him for that.
What were you saying, Steve?
I said it's a testament to the kids that he's coaching.
Yeah,
that's
they certainly have the finest facilities in the state.
They have for many years. The fact that they embraced the philosophy that he brought in, because I'm sure with any coaching change, there's philosophy changes or culture changes or however you want to say it or deem it. Each coach comes in, preaches his own little message or whatever about the family and the teamwork and all the same stuff I hear from all of them, but it is true. You got guys that are out there year round in some cases, at least in the weight room, you're there year round. And then you're there all together in the summer and putting up with all the heat and the exhaustion and all the hard work. If you're not friends and you're not family, it sure would be hard to get along to be successful at anything. I don't care if it was plowing a field. If you're not getting along,
Yeah, and Brian, I'm just excited for him, because you mentioned his journey and everything, and it's pretty cool to see stories like that. That's one reason I love sports. Some of these stories that Hollywood can't write, these stories are way better than anything you'll see in a movie.
And this Friday night, the Brian Lane story. A poor sharecropper's son rose to the heights of high school athletics.
As our last game, and we got to wrap things up. Things are getting late here out in the Pigpen, but
I'm fine. I got more cheer wine. Get us another caller in here.
After
in 5A, I don't know if anybody's left to take the call or not.
They probably have. I told you. You didn't listen to me.
In 5A, the GOAT, and if you don't call Tom Knotts the greatest high school football coach in South Carolina history, you're lying.
It's how many for him now?
That's 15 overall. It's 8
how many
for it.
Oh, that's right.
So start that season 2-5 and rally back and
left for dead.
Yeah, and everybody
look who they played in their non-regions.
Oh yeah,
But
they had a bad injury bug that came through, and that's why a lot of people are like, well, guess they're not going to win state this year, and they got some guys back healthy at the right time.
Man, kids get healthy, they come back, and teams don't start play. If you are a good team, you don't start playing your best till about week 8, week 9. You're at your peak if you're making 11 and 12 week appearances. And if you're at 13 weeks, you're not going to get any better than you are right there. It is what it is.
Everybody's banged up.
Not counting our collegiate and private friends that we have that we try to ignore, but Dutch Fork, like Abbeville, the upper and lower state, the upper and lower states for 2A and for 5A lower state. Every year, I don't care what they graduate, I don't care what happened. Those are two teams that their championships. If you're going to win a state championship, you're going to go through the Dutch Fork and Abbeville at those two levels.
Oh yeah,
guaranteed.
Oh,
yeah. And it's going to be extremely interesting next year. Now that the multiplier is in effect, that to see where all of these teams are going to land, because this multiplier is going to hurt.
I hope a few of them land on their keister.
Well, the multipliers will hurt the people. I guess they're intending to hurt. I mean, hurt.
And I hope it hurts.
Affect. They're going to affect the people that they're intended to affect, but they're going to be teams.
It's going to be the trifecta.
When me and Steve's going and watching 3A football next year, it may not be as fun as we intended. As we might be right there in the region with our little friend next year if they're not in 4A.
There's no way that we're going to be bumped up to 3A. We don't have that.
I'll take that bet.
Oh, you're kidding me. We do not have
that. This is a off-air subject matter.
That's a good subject matter to discuss. So you're telling me that there's a possibility that Landrum will be bumped up to 3A.
I mentioned this last week if you went back and watched. See, the deal is
I don't usually pay attention to what you say. It's all about me. You know that. I only listen to myself.
No, the deal is that everybody basically declares what their bus
technical foul.
Their bus zone is.
Busing. I thought you were talking about busing students, and I said, "Man,
well, we are talking about busing students because there are schools that they have. So they have we as a public school do have a defined attendance zone for District 1 and all this, but within District 1, the two schools lay out different parts of the county for the students that need to be bused in. Depending on where they live is where they're technically designated to go. Now, based on school choice, they can choose to ride in the car up to Landrum or down to Chapman, whatever. But there are so many students that are bus zoned for Landrum and Chapman. And it's very well possible that it could be, who knows the amount. I mean, we don't know those numbers. Won't know those numbers till they're released. How many of those out of the total? I don't know what the enrollment is for Landrum right now. But who knows? Who knows how many? It could be 200 that are driving a car up to Landrum, and that number has to be multiplied by 3. So we could sit here and start with 600 kids plus however many you got on for bus, and have numbers to be playing 3A ball.
So now we're using Common Core mathematics to get into this kind of crap.
Yeah,
what it looks like to me. I mean, that's. I don't see the logic behind this. I don't see the math behind it. It's as difficult to learn. What you're telling me is Common Core math.
We won't know what the math is officially on all that until the numbers and the guidelines are released, and they'll be released in depth, but
around sometime this month or early January.
It could be. I could very well see that both Chapman and Landrum, because Chapman's been on that line for their total enrollment period, being rumored to be moving up to 4A for too long, but especially with this multiplier in effect, if enough kids are either out of district or zone for Landrum that are going to Chapman, and those get multiplied by 3, if it's even 100 kids, then they're going to move to 4A because they're already close enough to 4A as it is. 4A being around 1,000 kids, and I think they're at what, 800 and something?
I don't know.
So I mean, it'll all be very. I think it'll be very close for both Landrum and Chapman. I think Landrum has a much better chance of going to 3A than Chapman even does to 4A, but it'll be interesting. There are going to be teams that aren't affected, like Abbeville will probably still be 2A. Abbeville's actually decreasing in size. There's a chance that they could go all the way down to 1A at some point.
Wow.
So I mean,
They know how to work it down there. I don't know what's going on.
So
they know how to feed the kids steroids and then hide the numbers.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know you're watching, Daniel.
Let's get back on track.
Let's get on track. Just cut Justin off. Just get his picture off my show if he don't like the content in which I
No.
This is our show here, Justin. I can talk about anything I want to as long as I don't curse. And I've been a good boy not saying bad words. I
never said you were bad
on the air. Actually, I'm sitting back with my feet propped up in air, just listening to y'all.
But we'll see when those numbers are released what is going to be. There's going to be big shake up. I imagine all the private and the charter schools,
going on.
all the private and charter schools are likely going to be 3A. And
bump them up to 4.
And unfortunately, it's sort of like it's been this whole time for Landrum. And, some of our Landrum people have been our more vocal opponents of these things, but we just seem to not be able to get rid of them. We moved up to 2A at some point. We're happy to get rid of them for 2 years. And then they changed the rules and bumped all of the private schools up to 2A, and we dealt with them for several years. And then
they're like hemorrhoids.
Then they moved them down, and then the charter schools have come around. Now, potentially, we can get rid of them, but then we're probably going to move back in the same area with them. So we'll see.
Same area as a hemorrhoid.
Plus, we have the new Mountain View prep coming in into the area next year. So, and then there's
I ain't worried about them. I know who they hired as a coach. Look at the face, Justice. It'll take them years to build something down there.
Yeah, it will. I mean, it'll take 2 or 3 years.
My God, you're playing in an old Winn-Dixie, for God's sakes.
I'm trying to find the right way to put this.
It seriously will take. I mean, because of the way
I don't like him.
Because of the way that they layer in there. I mean, they'll go one grade at a time, so it will be several years before they should be able to really compete in the big number sports like that. I mean, but we'll see. You never know. It's you never know what, and you never know who.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I think we've said enough for one night. But Dutch Fork victorious over, who did they beat, Justin? Off the top of your head.
White Knoll.
White Knoll, because I saw a picture where the White Knoll coach hugging his son who attends Dutch Fork. So,
well, and the head coach at White Knoll is a former defensive coordinator for Knox at Dutch Fork.
Yeah, it's
little connection there.
Yeah, so those are your state champions for football, and that's kind of the picture of what's going ahead from that.
The official state champion for 2A is vacant.
Yeah. I still believe that Barnwell and Abbeville should show up somewhere. Wasn't it Barnwell, or who was it that was the lower state runner-up? Was it Barnwell, was it?
I don't think so.
Whoever it was, who were those runners-up were, have a meet somewhere this weekend and play all for the real state champion.
Have them show up at Dutch Fork.
Thumb wrestle for it.
Bring them to Dutch Fork. Let them throw down.
Yeah, and then have Oceanside show up, and we can have a champion versus champion matchup. And
how about have Dutch Fork meet at the Dutch Plate in Campobello?
Well, they could close. So.
Speaking of that, Campobello had their Christmas parade today, and it was a very lovely, festive experience. All 1.5 blocks of it, and only 3 mules were injured. And for that, it was a nice experience. But I want everybody to know, if you're still here, and if you're not, that's okay. You listen to it later. Inman Christmas parade tomorrow evening. Go uptown starting about 4:30.
Now we will say I'm going to give
some lighting of the big Christmas tree. Also,
normally no one likes to throw down on Inman more than I.
It is my hometown, so watch it, okay?
Well,
I'll go along with you on my alma mater jokes and all that, but
I'm about to be living in the city of Inman soon, so.
Wait a minute now. Breaking news. Are we going to have the Justin Mathis bachelor pad going here?
I mean, I'm gonna have an office space and everything. So.
Oh, an office space.
Yeah, I'm gonna, it's gonna be. I'm gonna be living in the town of Emmons sometime soon. What in the world is it?
Hey,
What is it?
Welcome to the Pigpen after hours.
Welcome on into
the quiet storm.
Welcome on into Master's Love Net.
No.
Justin is sporting the newest fashion from Victoria's Secret Man Speedo.
No.
Now, just wait a minute. Now, you didn't open up a can of worms.
Yeah, I know.
We were ready to sign off here, but what you getting an office for?
Well, I mean, I'm getting my own little place. It's not going to be much. So.
Oh, got a little place there. Get naked, throw beads. What?
Whoa! Wow. There's a line, and you crossed it.
You have to watch the old Craig Ferguson show. They had the robot and stuff, and they'd have a little
great.
They'd have the little robot, and he'd say, Jeffrey Peterson.
Jeff. Yeah, Jeff.
And they would sit there and read off letters. Like, we got a letter from Justin in Inman, South Carolina. Oh, I got a place there. Oh, you got a little place there? Yeah, what do you do? So I get naked, throw beads.
And then when Craig would go down to sit down to interview whoever, he just rip the card up and throw it in the pizza.
Yeah, I miss Craig, but so you you're moving on out.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a sign outside the front door that says "Keep the line moving."
I think with the times, instead of wearing my dead auntie's wig, I'm gonna have me a Whoopi Goldberg mop wig to wear, or just get me a mop.
Well, Justin, please tell us whenever you get all settled in, because we will have In the Pigpen live from the Justin
Lord.
Oh yeah. We coming over with a bottle of cheer wine,
cool whip and a weed eater.
We gotta go, folks. This cheer wine. We're
gonna have Cool Whip, weed eater, and a live chicken.
That live chicken staying outside.
I got a reservation at the Bunny Ranch.
All right, folks, we're gonna head on out here.
Why? There's no time limit. We can be on as long as you want to. Nobody's listening anyway.
I don't want to anymore. That's the problem.
Steve, you sound like Harry Doyle from Major League. You can't say on the air. Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Folks, this has been In the Pigpen. I've been one of your co-hosts, Kevin Jackson. Your other, Steve Roper. Our guest tonight has been Justin Mathis. Thanks to everyone in the comment section. We'll be back with you probably another week or two for a Christmas edition. Maybe have an upstate short presentation for you. Watch out. We're going to see what Justin gets for Christmas from Upstate Prepcast, folks.
Go Pack, go, baby. Go Pack, go.
Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.